So about 18 years ago, I put out a poll on the channel asking what RPG I should review next. And of course, you little goblins won more DCC stuff. So today we're doing Shadow Under Devil's Reef by Jon Hook. And if you're familiar with Jon Hook, he does a lot of stuff with Call of Cthulhu, and that is very much reflected here. We're gonna go into spoilers right away because I'm just gonna get right into it. My quick review is that I do recommend it, but there are flaws, and I did also make mistakes that I think you can learn from, so I highly recommend just watching this if you want to run this. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get right into it. So this scenario has a pretty convoluted start. It's not a bad start, it's just one that I would say that if you want to get the most out of it, you don't want to run this as a one-shot. Due to the structure of the scenario itself, as well as the pretty complex opening, this works better as a sort of a sandbox scenario. I would say put this in a bigger campaign, or give yourself enough sessions to run this where you feel comfortable. So don't put a hard limit like I did. That's the first thing I'm going to teach you right now, is that I made this into a one-shot. Don't run this as a one-shot. Unless you have like 8 hours, which I didn't. I only ran this in a 4-hour slot. So that wasn't enough time to do everything. So I did have to mangle it a bit just to keep it shorter so I could actually get through the whole scenario. And if you like Lovecraftian horror, this scenario is great. It has all of Lovecraft's greatest hits. It has Starspawn, it has Deep One, it has Shoggoths, it has races. But in terms of that convoluted opening I've already mentioned, let's just get right into it, and you're going to want to strap in, because there's a lot that's about to come at you right now. So the group starts in a coastal town called Black Sand Port. To the north of Black Sand Port is Devil's Reef and also Devil's Horn, which I'm going to be using interchangeably because Devil's Horn is just the coral reef island on top of the coral reef. You'll probably understand from context which one I'm talking about, so if I do mess that up, I do apologize, but I'm probably going to be going back and forth because it almost seems like a detail that doesn't even need to be in the story. And on Devil's Horn, or Devil's Reef, there is a laboratory with Elder Things. The Elder Things have a star spawn. Now, the star spawn are basically like smaller versions of Cthulhu. And when I say small, it's still giant. Like, it's huge. It's like the size of an elephant. It's much bigger, but it's not like a full Cthulhu. It's just like a mini kind of Cthulhu. This star spawn is sort of reaching out for help. Black Sand Port is currently awaiting a delegation from a nation called Thulamia. This delegation consists of the ship the Royal Dawn, and it has the Princess Keiko of Thulamia on there, who's supposed to come to Black Sand Port. There's currently a storm going on, which the Royal Dawn goes through, as well as the Starspawn sending out telepathic messages, which is also luring the Thulamians over towards the reef. On top of this, humans have a Deep One DNA inside them, and I believe the Thulamians especially have it. So as they get closer and onto Devil's Reef, they crash, a bunch of people die, and the ones who've survived are mutating into Deep Ones while they're on the island. And that's basically where we start. So the players are in Black Sand Port, and a bunch of Thulamian sailors are washing up ashore. There's different factions already popping up about who's going to get them first, and this is how the players get tasked to go find out what happened to the Royal Dawn and see if they can find Princess Keiko and bring her back to Black Sand Port. Little do they know that Princess Keiko has been taken by the Elder Things down into the laboratory and has already turned into basically a full Deep One. So just to reiterate that, because that is a very convoluted opening for a short scenario. You got them in Black Sand Port, you got the Royal Dawn that's crashed against Devil's Reef, there's a big storm that's going on, and the players have to go out and find out what happened. And I've chopped down quite a bit. There's quite a few other things there. There's a rumor table as well. There's a bunch of stuff, and I basically skipped all that for the one shot, where I just had them start on media res, just on a rowboat already heading towards Devil's Reef. I gave them the quick synopsis of what's happened and that they're already there, because in the scenario, there's a little bit of a scene on the beach where the group can, vie for a better price, negotiate, that sort of thing, see who they want to work with, and all that sort of stuff. And I just sort of skipped all that. And this is where I'll go into the second mistake I made, which was, this is a level 1 scenario, but I was looking at it, and it is very deadly. But I made them level 2. And the reason why I made them level 2 is that if you're familiar with any of the stuff, like the Pile of Shame campaign, I don't kill players a lot often, not for lack of trying. I just tend to play with people who are very smart and make good choices. But in this case, it was smart and good choices as well as amazing rolls. We had 2 wizards who just destroyed 3 encounters pretty much. We had a thief and a warrior who also did great backstabs and mighty deeds, and just there was crits, and they were doing really well, which is not common. There's a sort of running joke with my foundry that I have a mod installed to make players roll really low, but they were destroying everything. So I would say do level 1. The reason why I did level 2 is because I'm fine with character death, but when I'm trying to just run a thing for a review, I don't always necessarily want people just to die right away. You know, we're in the middle of it and then we just stop and do stuff. If we're kind of on a bit of a timeline, I like to just beef them up just a little bit. Death is still totally possible, but I like to try and make sure they can actually, you know, get through most of the encounter and then maybe die at the end. But in this case, they just completely wipe the floor with pretty much every encounter. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, DCC is very swingy. I don't really have an issue with it, but you might look at the scenario and go like, oh, this is deadly. I should give them more stuff. I would just leave it up to you if you think you should or not, but I'd say level 1 really does work, especially if you want more of a horror vibe. If you want them to really be more scared, then go for level 1. So the next change I made was Devil's Reef is just an actual island of all this coral. It has like coral trees and stuff, basically is what it looks like. It's a really, really cool vibe. And the Royal Dawn is on the north side of the island, and the players are coming from the south, where Black Sand Port is. One thing I did to make it quicker is that instead of having it in the north, I had it in the south. So that way they came across it right away. They went through the boat. The boat is a sort of like mini dungeon itself. Like that could be a session by itself. I was moving things along. The players knew that there was pacing, but you could probably have session 1 being the beach, negotiating, going off to deal with some shark-infested waters, maybe get some level 0s if you save any Philombian sailors, and then you just do the boat. This is where the sandbox part sort of comes in, is that you have the ship, which is a mini dungeon in itself, like I said. You also have this big onyx tower on one side of the island, and you also have a beach with these giant hidden crabs on the south side, and you also have this door that leads to the final part of the dungeon. So you can see that there's different locations that this becomes more of a sandbox game, and this was totally a mistake on my part because of how I just go about running scenarios. Oftentimes with these games, I'll see something, I'll do a quick flip through, be like, this looks really cool, I want to run this. I'll play a game posting, and then like 2 days before, I'll actually read it. And this time when I was reading, I was like, oh fuck, this actually has a lot more stuff to it than I realized, because most of these sort of booklets you get from the like first party DCC stuff, a lot of them can be run as one shots. Some are 2 shots, but you can usually tell just by the thickness of the book if it's going to be a 1 or 2 shot. This one surprised me. It did still work out, but there was that level of feeling rushed that you might not want with more of a creeping horror kind of game. For Devil's Reef itself, there's encounters that you can have if you have them exploring a lot. You have the tower that's sort of like a communication tower that they can mess with. There's the giant crabs that they have to fight. And finally, there's the door. So when it comes to the door itself, if you've watched any of my last stuff, you know I have a bit of a weird relationship when it comes to door puzzles. Oftentimes, they can be really convoluted, and at the end of the day, all you get is a door that opens. And I think that totally works if it's sort of a side thing, or you came across a thing that doesn't really matter for the main story, but this is the main area, and having a puzzle door, and this puzzle's really convoluted. It has to do with dials and like where plants are placed. I can't remember exactly, but it was enough where I was like, I don't really want to do this, and I also don't want to waste time trying to figure this out. So if you are doing a longer game, you might be able to just sort of sit there, relax, let the players breathe and sort of take it in a little bit. I think one of the big reasons why I have a problem with puzzle doors is that oftentimes they tend to be not super satisfying even to solve, especially for this one, because it felt very much like the answer didn't have anything to do really with everything else the players had seen. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed a part that if I was going slower, I would have noticed and there'd be those clues leading up to it. But in terms of a DCC scenario that does a really good job of having a puzzle door, it's probably like the best one I've seen, honestly. In the horror funnel, the Corpse That Love Built, there is a door at the end. This is sort of, I guess, spoilers for that scenario. The door in that one has a code you need to input, very similar to like the Skyrim ones where you have like the different symbols and you have to turn them around. The thing is that the 3 symbols, I think it's 3, are all symbols representing stuff you've already seen in the dungeon itself. So it works perfectly. You go through the dungeon and you don't even need to pay that close attention, but you can sort of get it pretty easily just by remembering what you saw and seeing the symbols and what they seem to represent. I had a player get it right away. So for this one, what I did was I had 2 wizards and they both had comprehend languages. So this door is covered in these like alien runes, and one of them decided to try that. And I thought that was a great solution. So they cast comprehend languages, they go a little bit crazy, they learn a little bit about the aliens, very COC, you know, they have blood coming out of their eyes and their nose and their ears, and they start turning the dials on the door and they click it and it goes open. And so the dungeon by itself is pretty simple. It's pretty much just sort of a straight line, except it forks off eventually. This is where you really meet all these Lovecraftian entities. You have a Shoggoth, you have deep ones, you have the elder things, you have the Starspawn. So if you have a group who really loves horror or Lovecraftian stuff and you want to get them into more OSR adjacent, depending on how you see DCC, this could be a good one to do it. I did have one funny comment though from one player who was like, I'm really not used to being able to kill these creatures so easily, because in stuff like COC, you know, you come across a Shoggoth, you gotta be real careful because they can easily kill you. And even in this, they're not all easy. In the first round, the Shoggoth killed the wizard, or sorry, rather put the wizard down and they got him back up. And this is where the other wizard was just spell burning and critting like crazy, killing all the deep ones and killing the Shoggoth. And then the warrior later just basically cut down another thing in one shot. It was a pretty crazy action, pulpy, heavy kind of fight. So it's very much like Pulp Cthulhu more than Call Cthulhu. And so they got to the final room, they got the princess out of one tank, and they saw the Starspawn in the other tank trying to talk to them. And what they did was they got the princess out, and they started leaving with her, and then they also released the Starspawn. And so it was a great sort of finale as they left Devil's Reef to head back to Black Sand Port. As they're approaching it, they could see the distance, this big Cthulhu creature coming out of the waves and just laying waste to Black Sand Port as they hear screams and see fire. And they all sort of just look at the one wizard who decided he really wanted to let that Starspawn go. And it was a great end. So yeah, I do recommend the scenario. Like I said, I do think the opening is kind of convoluted. I don't know if you necessarily need one that's that complicated. I really dumbed it down for you guys, and it's not like fucking Game of Thrones or anything, but it is just enough for if you were trying to run this as a 1 or 2 shot, it's a lot of front-loaded background that you don't necessarily really need. You can probably trim the fat a little bit. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I'm really sorry it took me so long to get this out. It has been a crazy time. I'm currently in my new sort of studio room. My roommate moved out, so I was able to take over her room and sort of turn it into an actual spot. And it's just been a lot going on. I'm hoping to get another RPG video out this month. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. If not, it'll probably come out in early November. If you want to watch other non-RPG related stuff that's on the channel, I recently released a commentary track I did with my buddy doing The Crow. It's an edited down version. It's not like just a straight commentary track. It was really fun to do. It was a huge pain in the ass in some ways, and Miramax did not want to let go. They were straight up blocking the video. They weren't even claiming it. I mean, they have claimed it now, so it's still claimed. But they were straight up just blocking it from being seen. So I had to do some pretty egregious stuff to the footage just to get it out there. But I hope you guys enjoy that. I recommend checking it out. So if you're looking to run or play in RPGs, join the Discord. The link is in the description. I'm trying to run games there more often as I can. It is pretty busy. But if you are looking to play in games I'll probably be reviewing on the channel, that's pretty much where I'm going to be posting them. Because I'll run them there, and then I'll probably see if I want to do a review on it, if it's something that's interesting enough to me, or I liked it or didn't like it, that sort of thing. So join that. Also check out on Twitch. We have the Temple of Elemental Evil actual play every Sunday, or as much as we can, and that's been really, really fun. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there.